One bit of news that I need to communicate is that with this win, with Barack Obama and, importantly, Joe Biden being reelected for a second term, this means that we can also now project that the Democrats have retained control of the Senate. Because the vice president functions as the tie-breaking vote in the Senate, even with the outstanding races still not yet called in the Senate, this means with Joe Biden as vice president, the Senate is retained in Democratic control. Again, from earlier tonight, we know that the House will be retained in Republican control. That tells you something. We'll wait to see what the margin's going to be in the Senate, but that tells you something about the governing environment for a second term of Barack Obama. I would also just like to, point of privilege, to say that this is an important moment for policy. This was a consequential presidency, not just because Barack Obama was the first African-American president, and not just because the country turned to the Democratic Party after 8 years of George Bush and Dick Cheney. This was a consequential presidency in terms of policy, in terms of civil rights matters like Don't Ask, Don't Tell, in terms of the president supporting marriage equality, in terms of economic policy like the stimulus, in terms of historic change like health reform. And like some of the other Wall Street reform, credit card reform, student loan reform measures that this president was able to pass. I know I'm forgetting something right now in this historic moment. Had this president been a one-term president, those policies would have been dialed back along with the rest of his legacy. Those policies will now be held onto in this country as we experience what is almost an inevitable economic rebound that would have happened with anybody as president. We are coming out of a horrible depression-sized recession. And as the economy gets better, those policies will be in place and they will become part of the new normal in America. They would have been clawed back had the presidency gone to the Republicans. Obamacare is here to stay, and it means that we got health reform for the first time in about 100 years trying to get it.
Can I add to that? Completely agreeing with it. The president has an unfortunate expression, I got it. It's not that.
I got this.
It's not that. It's that the people voted. Of course, they voted for him in tribute to him and with admiration for him. But they voted for those things. They voted for a president who would intervene and save the auto industry. They voted for a president who would be big enough as a Democrat to bring in his opponent, Hillary Clinton, and make her Secretary of State. They voted for somebody who would get rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, who would oppose enforcing the Defense of Marriage Act, who would have Lilly Ledbetter as one of his objectives and one of his agenda items. And they go through the list of all the groups that will now support him. The other guy, and I'm not going to knock him, he lost, looks like now, and he did lose. It's hard to even absorb this information so quickly, by the way, after all the months we've been covering it. But Romney was wrong to say self-deport. This isn't some mistake. It's a policy decision he made in the beginning of the campaign. He was going to get to the far right. And it was the one case he couldn't pivot back on. It's interesting, all that pivoting he did the last couple of weeks, the Hispanic community, we'll find out the numbers tomorrow. But it looks to me like they saw this as a real turn in the road against them.